All right, good evening, everybody. It is the Safety and the Sportswriter show with Knoxville, Nate, and Big Joe as we come in here to talk to you on a Friday night, 6 o'clock actually in the East, getting ready to talk to you about the world of sports while I sit here sweating my butt off. We have a lot to get into tonight. End of the basketball season. I know hockey is still going on, so I'll be watching a little bit of that tonight. See if we can get a seventh game out of at least one of these series, these big championship series. We have JJ Reddick to the Lakers. We're going to go over a list that I found online of who people think are now the best 25 coaches in the NCAA football as we get ready, because football's not that far away. And we got the pros next month, and then who knows, before long. When I was a kid, I hated this. The summers went so fast. But really, with the fact we have nothing to really talk about till football, I can't wait for summer to be over. Nate, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Summer will be over real fast, bud. Trust me. The first NFL game is the Hall of Fame game, and we're talking about like 3.5 weeks.
Yeah.
From that kicking off, and then there's a week and a half, 2-week hiatus, and then preseason starts, and then we're going. Plus, you'll have college football getting going too. I mean, guys start to report to fall camp for college football usually around the second week of July, second or third week of July. So it's going to happen as soon as you blink an eye here.
Yeah, that's good. Well, that's good to know. I mean, I don't want the summer to flash by, but man, I do miss football and college basketball and those kind of things. The summers, especially. I mean, around here, the Yankees are going to be the Yankees. The Mets are going to be the Mets, and it's like, baseball now. It's kind of like any sport, with the amount of teams that make the playoffs. The regular season, like, who cares? You just got to be one of the top 8 teams, and you're in it, and then just get hot. So, anyways, let's get to the. First of all, let's talk about the Celtics winning. Took care of business. They were probably the best team from beginning to end this season, or at least the most consistent. What are your feelings about this NBA season? What we see for the future, what we've learned this year, what impressed you, what depressed you, what about the NBA season being over?
Well, I mean, what depressed me was all the injuries in the playoffs. I feel like a lot of teams had pretty, solid seasons this year. Namely like the Milwaukee Bucks, the New York Knicks, for example, and then the Clippers were not a bad team. I think they finished like 6 games back of first place, and that was a pretty good team. But they just couldn't stay healthy either. And that was kind of the end of them. The Pelicans were playing pretty well towards the end of the season. They won the play-in game. Zion had 40 points and was dominating. And then he pulls his hamstring on the third to last play of the game. So then they were done. So Embiid was hurt. Giannis was hurt. It kind of set up. I'm not taking anything away from the Celtics, but they really kind of lucked out in this playoff series. I mean, first off, a lot of the teams in the East were banged up, and then out west, the Nuggets got taken out by the Timberwolves, and bam, all of a sudden the defending champion and probably one of the best teams in the entire NBA was out of it. So they knew they weren't going to have to play them in the finals, and I think. Getting to play. I mean, kudos to the Mavericks for getting as far as they did. They did what they were supposed to do. They beat the teams that were in front of them. But I just didn't feel like the Mavericks were anywhere close to as talented as the Celtics, and it showed in that finals series, if you want to call it that.
And the other thing, I mean, I'll tell you, I was shocked. I depend on you a lot more for NBA than I watch it, but how the opinion of Luka changed in the middle of the playoffs. I mean, whether he played injured, I never heard the amount of criticism about the fact that he doesn't play enough defense um, before, and it seems like he's kind of coming under a little bit of scrutiny down there in Dallas, which is kind of surprising. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't think anything happened in these playoffs that was like different. I mean, he's been the same guy ever since he came in the league. I mean, is he a premier defender? Definitely not. But the guy averaged almost 30 points a game. He averaged 9.5 rebounds. He averaged 8.1 assists. He averaged 2 steals. I mean, what do you want the guy to do? He is who he is. I don't know what people were thinking. They thought he was going to be. I guess some people just don't really watch him play that much. So they thought he would come out and be this like dominating athletic guy that dunks it and does all this stuff. And that's not him. He's a skilled European player, and that's what he is. That's what he does. But in these playoffs, he averaged 30 points a game and almost 10 rebounds and 8 assists and 2 steals. I mean, I don't know what else you want from him. I don't think the reason that the Mavericks lost was because Luka sucks. I mean, I think it would behoove the Mavericks if he was a little bit better on defense, but he's not. So you got to figure out ways as a coach to help him on that side of the ball
or hide him.
Yeah, run his. I mean, you can run a zone now in the NBA if you want to. You're not restricted to man-to-man defense. So there's ways to hide or to get around somebody not being the best defensive player. Hell, most of the guys don't play defense. So I don't know why people are so up in arms about that.
Well, I mean, I think, for someone like me who grew up, in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s when there was a lot of passionate and hard defense, the European aspect of the game, which may be prettier to watch in some respects. I mean, their ability to pass on the offensive end, there's no two ways about it. The European aspect and the European influences have improved the game, but there is that part of you that you long for the guy that'll put his nose in there and make the big stop, come up with the big steal, make his team better just on a night he's not shooting well, just because he plays defense. You know what I mean? It's that's the perception you get sometimes. And I'm not talking like I watch a lot of NBA basketball, because I don't. I watch college more. I'll watch a college game over a pro game any day in the week. But to me, it's like I'm a hockey fan. The influence of the Europeans on hockey, NHL hockey, is evident now. A lot of skating, not as much hitting. So there is that influence of the less physical game that I think some people, I don't want to say resent, but just they take them a peg down for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like no one plays defense. I mean, there's still some good defensive players. Rudy Gobert is, basically that's all he does is play defense. Bam Adebayo, who can, score the basketball, also is a very solid low post defender. Embiid is a good post defender. Victor Wembanyama, the rookie of the year, he was up for defensive player of the year with his shot blocking ability. There's a lot of guys that can still play defense. It's just that's not him. I mean, that's not Luka, but
it's also not what the NBA wants right now. The NBA, they want it to be more like they want the kids to tune in to see, someone score 60 points or make the dunk or do, go off like on a Steph Curry, 6 3-point night. That's kind of what they're trying to sell to the public. So, they're not worried about the defense. And I don't know how good it's selling these days for them, but I mean, I guess it's working.
Well, they have to be selling something because these guys are making buku bucks. I mean, just look at the contracts that have been handed down recently for the NBA. These guaranteed contracts that we're talking about $300 or $400 million. I think that shows you right now that people are watching. I mean, the finals was definitely very low rated. It was one of the lowest rated finals in some time. In fact, a lot of the college games outnumbered the NBA finals. In fact, the women's final game outnumbered the NBA finals, several of their games, which is kind of sad. But I think that was a product of a number of things. The finals weren't very exciting, and the Celtics dominated them.
Right.
Everybody knew they were going to win. And then B, a lot of people didn't really want these two teams to make it. Maybe the Celtics, but not the Mavericks so much. And that's why there weren't as many eyeballs on it. I mean, there's just not that many Dallas Maverick fans. I mean, I'm sorry. People in Texas don't really give a shit about the NBA. There's some passionate fans in San Antonio. But talking about Mavericks fans traveling, not so much.
Well, I mean, it's like when you take football out of the equation, because football is set up perfectly. I mean, if you do believe in a sports god, he created football perfectly and left it alone. I mean, every other sport, whether it be baseball, whether it be basketball, whether it be hockey, first of all, you very much tune in to the team in your side, your part of the country, and if they're not playing, you don't even watch it. You really don't care about the playoffs that much. Number two, and this is I'm just talking as a average outsider fan. They're thinking when you're playing in any kind of a series, whether it be baseball, hockey, or basketball, until there's like a 3-2 advantage or something like that, nobody really tunes in. Especially you up 3-0 or 3-0 or 3-1, people are like, yeah, get it back to where the other team can win, and I'll tune in. If you're not a real fan of that team, or if you're not an NBA passionate fan.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it works. I mean, you get to game 5, elimination games, game 7s. That's what people really want to watch, and that's where the casual fan, tunes in, and that's where you get the high numbers. Or when you have something going on like the Caitlin Clark phenomenon, I mean, that brought eyes to the women's game like there has never been before. Mm-hmm. And that's just not there wasn't that much star power throughout these playoffs because most of the big time stars were either hurt or not in it.
And or you have to have a transitional player, a LeBron, a Kobe, a Michael, somebody that, there's money on both sides. There's people who love them, people that hate them. So they tune in to watch them succeed or watch them fail. So that'll bring eyeballs to the table. But anyways, the JJ Reddick thing, I don't know. You are a Duke fan. You watched JJ Reddick when he was one of the best guards in the country as a Duke player. He had a nice career in the NBA. Don't know much about him. But I look at this situation and I don't know. I mean, I know he gets along well with LeBron. That's one thing that's really, really good. But man, to take on your first assignment like this, the Lakers, who have been, let's face facts, they've been wallowing around looking to get back on top. And the Laker fan base is not an easy fan base to excite. This is going to be tough for him. What do you think about his chances there?
I mean, I'm not sure he's really set up for success here, just because I'm not. I mean, I get it. It makes no sense. I mean, LeBron James was absolutely unbelievable this year. He was a top, 10 scorer. He led the league in assists. He was up in the top 10 in rebounds, steals. I mean, it's amazing what he was able to do at his age. But, how much longer is he going to really play?
Right.
There's so much more that he wants to do. He's already got $1 billion. He's not playing for the money, Joe. I mean, that much. I don't care what people think about LeBron because everybody's got their own little opinions and most of them are stupid and wrong. Yeah. But whatever. You can think about him whatever you want. He's not playing basketball for money. Okay. No. He's got so much money and he's making money off every commercial on TV.
He also has every record he'd ever want.
Yeah. I mean, he has every record. He has every dollar. He's playing because he wants to win another title. And so that's what I'm a little bit confused about here. You want to win a title. You want to win it all. It's kind of win the title or bust. And you go and get a guy that's never coached a game ever. That to me is confusing. I like JJ Reddick. I think he's an extremely intelligent player. He's an unbelievable analyst. I watched him call games, and he was phenomenal at it just because his basketball IQ is through the roof. So I really enjoyed listening to him call basketball games. And then I love his podcast is unbelievable. The guests he gets and the interviews he does. But does that mean that he can coach basketball and make a difference? I don't know. Everybody's got to start somewhere. People didn't like the Eric Spoelstra hire when it began, and look what he's done. He's one of the best coaches of all time. People didn't like the Brad Stevens move when he had kind of a subpar season. Then he got basically promoted to the general manager position. But look now, they're celebrating a title up there. So there's a lot of people that's jobs are on the line. And I think Rob Pelinka has got to be first. I mean, you can't fire the owner, Joe.
No, okay? I know.
You can't do it as much as we want to sometimes.
I've tried
with some of these teams. You can't fire the owner. So the next guy is the general manager. And, we've had a lot of coaches shuffling through here in Los Angeles the past few years. Frank Vogel, Darvin Ham, JJ Reddick. I mean, there's 3 in the last, 5 years. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on him, and he's going to have to figure things out quick. But if he can put together a really nice staff with guys that have experience and that can help him, maybe he does okay. But to me, it's going to come more down to, this decision was important, I guess. But to me, the most important decision of this whole offseason is who do they get? They have 3 first-round draft picks. They're not going to use all those. So do they trade all those for one guy? Do they draft some? Do they trade some of those and move up and take the first pick? I don't know. But they have to figure that out. And to me, that is the most important thing. Who do you put around Anthony Davis and LeBron, moving forward? And do they get a contract worked out with LeBron? Because he just opted out of his contract. So right now, LeBron's a free agent. And if he doesn't come back, then what do you do? I think he's going to. But I just feel like things are a lot of things need to get figured out really fast.
Let me ask you a question. You talked about his inexperience, which is true, but sometimes I don't have a name off the top of my head. I'll use a fantasy name, but you have a coach like that first time out, and this helped Phil Jackson when he first took over with Chicago. He got Tex Winter, he got experienced minds that did the X's and O's for him, so he could just run the game, run the team. You know what I mean? With JJ Reddick, if he could find a veteran coach, maybe just because it's out there and his own coach, a Mike Krzyzewski who's retired, and would want to come out and be like his bench coach and help him out with that. I think that would help a lot too. To have.
That's what I was just talking about. I mean, it's really he talked about it yesterday when he got interviewed. Who would he put on his staff, and that's going to be very, very important to him. Is who he puts on the bench with him. I think he needs to get an ex head coach really that can help him work this. But let's be honest, man, guys that have had little to zero experience have had a lot of success. Look at Joe Mazzulla for the Boston Celtics. I mean, 2003, this was his first year as the full-time coach. 2003, 2004, this was his first season, and he won the NBA title. Yeah. So you can't sit here and be like, well, he has no experience. There's no way he can succeed. Well, Joe Mazzulla just proved that wrong, and the coach before him for the Celtics actually did pretty well until he had sex with one of his assistants. There in the office, which
not that there's anything wrong with that,
which was frowned upon, I guess.
I don't understand how things have changed. The thing about it is, there's many, like Spoelstra's a great example of that. I mean, Phil Jackson came. He was the assistant coach to Doug Collins, but he had no experience before he took over. I mean, he inherited Michael but he and found a way to win, which is great. But I mean, yeah, it can be done because the NBA. Let's face facts. The hardest team game to coach at all is football because there's so many moving parts, so many people to that, and so many different, packages and stuff you have to do. That's the hardest sport. Basketball, I mean, you're right. You get some drop some good plays, have the right players, and let them play. I mean, hockey's the same way. Baseball, you look for when do I should make a pitching change, or
Well,
when do I
Bill,
bench
Bill
somebody?
Russell took over, in 1969,
Yeah,
and was the youngest coach ever, to win the finals in his first season. So, it can be done. And I think Joe Mazzulla is a great example of it. I mean, he did take over as the interim coach last year, but this was his first full year as the head coach, and they won it all. So I think, they know what they're doing. I don't think they would just hire JJ if he didn't have an opportunity for success. I mean, they know there's more pressure on those guys to win than anybody else. And they tried to get Danny Hurley, who also has no NBA. Because everybody was all up in arms about getting Danny Hurley. Well, you know how many NBA games he's coached? 0. So he has the same NBA experience as JJ Reddick. Now he's been proven as a tremendous college coach. So he's got that. But I'm just saying that doesn't always translate, into professional sports.
and in any sport. All right, I want to go over to this college coaching list I have here. I love these lists. I don't know somehow how they put them together sometimes, but I'm going to run them by you and see what you think. Start out. Number 1, I don't think we can argue with Kirby Smart.
As far as being the best coach in college football?
Right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 2 titles to prove it. And let's be honest, he was like 2 plays away, from winning last year. If they would have won the SEC championship game and beat Alabama, I honestly, truly, as much as it pains me to say it, I believe that Georgia would have won the national championship. They were starting to peak at the right time. They had they just had a couple of bad turns of events in that SEC championship game and ended up losing to Alabama, but they easily could have gone on to win their 3rd straight title. And you want some evidence of that? Look what they did to Florida State in the bowl game. And I know Florida State was missing some guys, but it looked like a NFL team versus a middle school team, and it was embarrassing. And that's because Georgia was pissed off that they weren't in it, and they wanted to prove that they belonged, and they did.
Second, they got Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, which I think he did well at Fresno State. He did well at Washington, but it's a little early to make him the number 2 guy.
He's won everywhere he's ever been. That is a fact that he has, won every single place he's ever been. And I think with his track record of coaching, that you have to have him on the list. I mean, he was, when coaching at Sioux Falls, he played in the semifinals or the national championship game every year. He was the coach there from 2005 to 2009, so 5 years. And they played in the first year he was there. They played it. They went 11-2, and they played in the semifinals. The last 4 years, they played in the championship game every year, and they won 3 of 4. So you got that going on for you. Then he goes to Fresno State. First year was the COVID year. They went 3-3. Comes in his first full year and goes 9-3, and wins a bowl game. Then he goes to Washington and completely hits a home run there by going 25-3 in 2 seasons and going to the national championship game, and now he's at Alabama. So I mean, I guess you could argue with this, but I'm not going to.
Okay. Kyle Whittingham at Utah, they rated as number 3.
I love Kyle Whittingham. I really do. And I love the way that he coaches, and I love the way that he builds his team. And I definitely think he's one of the best coaches in all of college football. Do I think he's the third best coach overall? I would have to see this list and compare him with the rest of them because, as great of a coach as he is, everything's got to go into this recruiting. I mean, does he recruit 5-stars? No, he doesn't. Should he? I don't know. Maybe it's probably hard to bring those guys to Utah, but that's part of it. You got to give guys credit for everything that they do, and definitely he's more of a developer than a recruiter, if you know what I mean.
Yep. Number 4, this guy would have been much higher a couple of years ago. Dabo Swinney.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that he's still that high, but the guy won several national championships and also had them playing in the college football playoff 6 straight years.
Yep.
So I think he's earned that, and I think he deserves to be up there.
Your man Ryan Day is number 5.
I think that's about where he should be. I mean, I think he'd be higher if a couple things had gone his way. I mean, if you really think back about it, and I'm not making excuses for the guy because it doesn't really matter what happens. You have to win. But that Georgia game was complete bullshit. And if Marvin Harrison doesn't get speared in the ribs, they definitely win that game. Not to mention they were missing 7 starters before Marvin Harrison went down. The Clemson game, which was one of the biggest jokes of all time. When 2020, when they made the national championship game and had about 3 or 4 starters miss out because of COVID restrictions. And then Trey Sermon, who had ran for almost 400 yards in 2 games, breaks his collarbone on the 3rd play from scrimmage. So, all those things happening, and this guy's still 56-8. Joe, if you can tell me another coach that began his career with a better record than 56-8, I'm ready to listen to your list.
You'd have to go back. I mean, I probably
in the modern era.
Yeah, exactly.
Give me the name in the modern era.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't come up with one. I mean, because I'd have to go back to like Eric Parsegian at Notre Dame or John Robinson when he took over USC, Switzer at Oklahoma. You're talking about those type of names with that. That's where you're going to. I mean, that's you look at their records and you think it's a misprint. So. Number 6, Lance Leipold at Kansas. I know he did a lot in D3, and he's put Kansas back on the map. But it's as that league is falling apart too. What do you think about him?
I'm a big fan of his. I don't know if he's the 6th best coach in all of college football. Turning Kansas into a winning program. Is definitely something that he should be recognized for, because let's be honest, Kansas football was a absolute joke before he got there. And not to mention, when he was at Wisconsin Whitewater, and I understand it's Division III football.
Only lost 6 games.
But he won, he was 109-6, and he won he was the coach there for 7 years, and they played in the championship game every season, and they won 6 of them. So this guy is a winner. He turned Buffalo into a team that won 10 games.
Right.
Buffalo, seriously. And then, he's won 9 games at Kansas and won a bowl game. So I think, he deserves to be on this list. Do I think he should be right there? I want to see a little bit more from him and see if he can, take that next step. But hell, you win 6 out of 7 national championships in Division III. I'm a Division III former football player, so yeah, hell, put him there. I'm good with it.
Next with Brian Kelly at number 7. You and I have gone back and forth about Brian Kelly. But the bottom line is he wins. Maybe not. He's not the kind of guy you might want to sit down and have a beer with, but maybe you did. But the thing was that he wins wherever he goes, and it just he hasn't got over the hump and won the championship. But a lot of coaches have never won that. So Brian Kelly.
It's hard to win a national championship.
Yeah.
I know everybody wants everybody to win a national championship every year, but that's very difficult to do. And when I think of Brian Kelly, my first interactions with him was when he was at Grand Valley State, and this guy, built a powerhouse at Grand Valley. They played in 3 straight Division II national championships. He won 2 in a row to end his career out there. He went 118-35. Turned around a crappy Central Michigan program and had them winning for years after he left, even when Butch Jones took over. Then he goes to Cincinnati and wins 10, 11, and 12 games there. So he goes 34-6 at Cincinnati. Butch Jones comes there and wins after he leaves with Brian Kelly's players. And then he goes to Notre Dame and has the most wins ever for any Notre Dame coach. And then your big knock on him was that he couldn't coach quarterbacks, and he goes to LSU and helps Jaden Daniels win the Heisman. So
all my theories.
Hey, I'm just saying, man, this guy, he might be a dick and might be pretty weird, but he's a phenomenal football coach, and that's just a fact based on the stats we're looking at.
And we got Mike Norvell at Florida State at number 8.
Yeah, I like Mike. He had a good season, but I don't know if I'm ready to have him up there. I guess who do you put up here in this list? You got to put somebody. And, he did do a good job. I honestly thought he was going to get fired after he went 3-6 at Florida State, and then he followed that up with a 5-7. That was not good. And I give a lot of credit to the athletic department at Florida State for seeing, the good in this guy and hanging on to him, because he finished, strong in 2022 and went 10-3. And then, obviously last year was 13-0 until his quarterback got hurt.
I'm going to group 9 and 10 together because they kind of, in my mind, they're like parallel roads. They seem to they've had some questionable stops. They've had some times where you sit there and you go, how does this guy keep getting a job? But he keeps getting a job, and that's Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin. They got to have something, but I mean, you sit there and you look at them and you're just like, they got hired again?
Yeah, I must admit that I was kind of surprised when Steve got the head job at Texas. I just, let's be honest, that stuff at USC was kind of a disaster when he didn't show up to a scheduled practice, and no one knew where he was. And then he took an indefinite leave of absence, and then he got ended up getting fired basically, and it was due to some some issues that I'm not even going to go into because I feel bad for the guy. But I give him a big time vote of confidence after the way that he turned his life around and everything that he's done. And I was a little bit concerned with him getting hired at Texas because I just didn't know how well that would go. There was a lot of pressure on him, and underneath him, the team has done really well. I mean, first 2 years not great, but last year, going 12-2 and making the college football playoff was huge. Everybody's been talked about bringing Texas back. They've been talking about it since Vince Young walked off the field. This guy's going to bring him back. This guy's going to bring him back. And nobody's been able to do it. And I think we can honestly say that Sarkisian did. Can he sustain it? We'll see. That's a little harder to do than people lead you to believe. But he has been recruiting at a tremendous clip. And he's got the quarterback, and he's got the skill guys. So I don't see Texas sloughing off. The problem is that now they're in the SEC, and there is going to be no easy games. So it's going to be a lot of pressure on him to keep it going, with all this hoopla going on.
Next one is Mike Lanning out in Oregon, or Dan Lanning, I should say. Dan Lanning out in Oregon. Like him, a little young in his head coaching job here. I like him. I think he could have been pushed up if we had a little more body or more resume as a head coach. What do you think?
Yeah, I've been very, very impressed with what he's done. Since taking over, he had never been a head coach in his life until he took over as the head coach at Oregon in 2022. And since taking over, first year they went 10-3 and won the Holiday Bowl and finished 15th in the country. And then last year, 12-2, and their only two losses were to Washington, and they were both close games. So so far so good with this guy. It's just I don't know how you can put him much higher than that. He's coached 2 seasons, so let's see what happens going forward. But if the first 2 years are any indication of what's to come, he looks like he knows what he's got going on.
And then they got into of course the mullet, Mr. Gundy next. Mike Gundy.
That's a weird one because I don't know. Maybe he should be a little bit higher because let's think about it. I mean, where is he at? He's at Oklahoma State. And is there as much money at Oklahoma State? No. Is there the same amount of resources and does he have the same ability to bring these players in, these big-time recruits? No. But he's been the coach there now. What started in like 2005 was his first year, and they have made a bowl game in every season that he's been the coach there, except his first season when they went 4-7. So, I give them all a lot of credit. I think, at 2011 when they went 12-1 and won the Big 12 and then won the Fiesta Bowl. That was a huge year for them. And then in 2021 they went 12-2. So, and won the Fiesta Bowl again. So he's had a lot of success, and he's had sustained success at one location. So I think he deserves to be on this list, and I think he may actually should be moved up a little bit higher.
Next is now this is where I'm shocked because I'm gonna give you the next two. First at 13, they got Willie Fritz at Houston, followed by Lincoln Riley at USC.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised Lincoln Riley wasn't higher, just because everybody loves him and he makes $12 million a year. So you would think if you're paying somebody $12 million, they would be a top 10 coach at least. But last year, I think worried a lot of people.
Yeah,
his offense didn't look as good, and he's not been able to put together the defense to go with the offense. So. That probably worried people. Fritz is one of the top up and coming coaches. I mean, to win the way he did at Tulane is just unbelievable. And I'm interested to see how he does at Houston, because if he can have any type of success like he had at Tulane, I think we'll see him way higher up on this list real quick.
All right, number 15 is Chris Kleiman at Kansas State. Took over for a legend, Bill Snyder. But Kansas State, they're a quality team, but they play in the Big 12, the Big 12, which is becoming a nondescript conference.
Yeah, I mean, I like what they've done there. I mean, with Oklahoma and Texas bolting, I like the teams that they added to the mix. And I think the Big 12 is at least set up to be pretty solid in basketball and in football, honestly, with the additions that they made this past year and this year. I think they actually did a pretty good job. I mean, they're going to have Arizona, they're going to have Arizona State, they're going to have Utah in the conference. They got Colorado back. I like a lot of the additions to this conference, and that's going to prove to be telling as to whether this league can compete with the other teams, considering they're kind of cannibalizing the Big Ten, and the SEC are cannibalizing the rest of college football. I like what the Big 12 has done, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can, any of these teams can compete on a national level.
16, they got Jeff Brom at Louisville.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably about right. He did a lot with a little at Purdue, and honestly had a really good year. First year at Louisville, they kind of tailed off there at the end, but I think he exceeded expectations, and he's done a tremendous job recruiting. So I expect him to get even better.
Next is Luke Fickell at Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, he tore it up at Cincy for sure. And Wisconsin year one was kind of a disappointment. So I think he's got a lot of pressure on him, but recruiting's gone well, and they got to find a quarterback. I mean, if he's going to be able to win at Wisconsin, it's the same problem that Dane Christ had. They just did not have a quarterback that could compete with some of these teams like Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State. You have to have a quarterback that can sling it, and they just haven't had that guy. So maybe they'll have him this year. I don't know, but he's got a lot of pressure on him because he's getting paid a lot of money, and made that jump from Cincinnati to Wisconsin, and now he's going to have to put up.
Here's a guy you got to feel sorry for, Kirk Ferentz at Iowa. 21 bowl appearances and put together 11 straight winning seasons, but he's in the Big Ten where nothing outside of Ohio State and Michigan matters. It's like, damn it, what is he? He should have gone. He's one of the guys who should have jumped and gone somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, he's a lifer. I mean, he's been at Iowa almost ever since I've been alive. So that's, he's certainly built a hell of a program there that's had some tremendous teams, and honestly is probably a better football coach than a lot of these other guys. He just, operates in a little bit of a different world.
19, we've talked about this guy at length. I mean, at some point he's got to beat Michigan or Ohio State, and that James Franklin at Penn State. I mean, he's put together some winning seasons, but it seems anytime the maize and blue or the scarlet and silver is across the other sideline, he freezes.
Well, yeah, and he's a jerk. And I'm surprised, honestly, that he's survived with all the stuff that's come out. I mean, he was going to get charges put against him, except for the fact that, it was outside the statute of limitations for what he did. I mean, he basically was going in there, and the doctor would say, hey, this kid's hurt, he's not eligible. And he would say, okay, thanks. And then he would go send these kids to other doctors and get them cleared, and bringing guys back quick from injury, and basically just going against what you should be doing as a coach, which is taking care of your kids. He was trying, he was trying to get over the hump and get that win that he hasn't been able to do on his own. And I'm surprised that he's not in more trouble, because if Ryan Day had done some shit like this, it would be on the front of every news outlet every day until he was fired. So I'm not sure why people aren't making a bigger deal out of it.
Number 20, Elijah Drinkwitz at Missouri.
Yeah, I think Eli deserves to be higher after last year. I mean, they came out of nowhere. Nobody really expected him. When he pulled in Luther Burden, one of the top players in the country, who has become one of the best wide receivers in the country, people were just kind of like, whoa, how did he get him there? It's because he's building something. He's a great football coach, and honestly, I think he deserves to be higher than some of these other guys.
Dave Doran at North Carolina State.
Dave Doran. I mean, Yeah, I guess. I mean, he's a good football coach. I don't know. I don't know if I'd put him in my top 20. I guess we're not even in the top 20 anymore. So maybe he's at where he should be. But last year was a disappointment for him. And they had a lot of guys coming back. They went out and got, a quarterback in the portal and then, just did not have a good season. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him in 2024.
At 22, Jed Fish taking over Washington.
Yeah, that would be the guy from Arizona,
Correct.
who kind of stunned the whole country with what he did last year. I kind of wanted him to stay at Arizona, so I don't know why you always have to leave once you have success. Why you have to go to a different school, I guess, if you have success. But I really was hoping he might stay at Arizona and get something done because I thought he was, really, really, really doing something there. But that's not how college football works anymore. If you have a little bit of success, you usually get poached.
23. This one I just don't, because there's other coaches that are left out of this. Jamie Chadwell at Liberty. I mean,
Yeah, I thought he would I thought he would be up for a bigger coaching job after the success that he had at was he at Coastal, and
yeah.
I thought he would get hired, somewhere big time, and was kind of surprised that he ended up at Liberty. I thought he had shown me enough where I would take a shot on him, and I think he'll keep on winning. Where he's at.
Josh Heupel at Tennessee is 24.
Yeah, I didn't really love the hire at the beginning, but you can't deny what he's done. He's been the first coach since Philip Fulmer to bring the Vols back to relevance. Last year was kind of a disappointment, but now with Nico Yemolela at the quarterback position and hopefully some better players at the wide receiver, things should look better, but there's certainly a difficult schedule this year. And, I don't know what this defense is going to look like. So you have to give him credit for what he's done. I mean, I did not really love the hire, to be honest with you, when it came down, but he's done a tremendous job so far.
And then they got Mark Stoops as the last guy, number 25 at Kentucky.
He's turned Kentucky into a football team that people watch play, and that's not something that occurred before he got there. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for that, and I think he also deserves credit for staying at Kentucky. He's had opportunities to leave and go other places quite often, and he's stood pat and stayed in Lexington, and I think that should be commended.
All right, two guys I want to bring up before we end this section. First of all, Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. Maybe hasn't had that seminal. I mean, he hasn't done a bad job, but maybe what does he need to do to get people to start patting him on the back and saying, "Okay, what are we looking for with him?"
Maybe not lose to Marshall. I think that would probably be a good idea. Maybe beat someone that he shouldn't beat. That would also be a good idea. I think Marcus got a little bit ahead of himself, when he got hired, and all the Notre Dame people thought that he was going to come in and win the championship right away. It's not how college football works generally.
No.
And, especially with Brian Kelly as good as he was as the coach there. Everybody wanted him, acted like they wanted him out, and the program's gone down since he left. I mean, I'm sorry, they're 9-4 and then 10-3, and Brian Kelly had better years than that. So far, he's 9-8, and honestly, those numbers are a little bit skewed based on their strength of schedule. I know they scheduled a home and home with Ohio State and played them tough, but they've won. They've played against some other teams that really don't really scare anybody, and then losing to Marshall, and honestly should have lost the next week against Cal if it weren't for a pitiful call. So I think he's done a good job recruiting, but I would tell you if I had to choose between Brian Kelly and Marcus Freeman, I'd take Brian Kelly.
Well, that goes without saying right now, because Marcus is his first shot, and he still got to turn it around. The other guy I wanted to talk about, because he was the hot young coach a couple of years ago. I think both of us gave him a lot of compliments. You did have Brock Purdy as his quarterback. Matt Campbell at Iowa State. Did he stay there too long? Has he staled now? Because a few years ago, he was one of the hot young commodities out there. And some of the names in that top 25 list, I'm sitting there going, they haven't been around as long as Matt Campbell. And he did show promise. He never quite got them over the hump, but when he did have Purdy and he did have those players out there, at least they were competitive. What is he? Did he miss his opportunities? Is the window closed?
Yeah, I'd say the pinnacle was 2020 when they went 9-3 and won the Big 12. I kind of expected him to take a job after that, and he didn't. And things have kind of gone downhill from then. They went 7-6 in 2021, and then 4-8 in 2022. They had a little bit of a better season last year, finishing 7-6 again. So maybe he can, turn things around and win there. But he's going to have to stay there now, because nobody really wants him anymore. So he's going to, his loyalty to that team hopefully will rub off, and they'll have loyalty to him, because he's going to have to win there in order to get another shot if he wants to go somewhere else, or maybe he wants to stay there. I just don't think he's going to be able to win. What do you want him to do? Win a national championship at Iowa State? It's not going to happen.
Right.
So if he can win, 8, 9, 10 games a year, that's, kind of like Kurt Ferentz down the road. If he can do that, he can probably stay there forever.
What about Fleck up in Minnesota?
Yeah, to me, his reign in Minnesota has been a disappointment. I was so high on him after he went into Western Michigan and turned them into a power and won 13 games and went to a January 1 bowl game. I was blown away by his success and was really excited to see what he would do at Minnesota. And ever since getting there, it's just kind of been, meh. I just haven't been real impressed. He talks a big game and he acts like he's hot shit, but he hasn't really done anything. So I guess you can kind of take context from that as far as my thoughts.
All right. Anybody that you wished would have been on that list, or that you would have fit in or squeezed in somehow?
I think it's weird that we didn't mention the guy that coached at Duke last year and then got hired over at Texas A&M, Mike Elko. I thought that he would be on this list somewhere, especially after winning at Duke. I think you should get a little bit of credit for winning football games at Duke University, and and then basically having Texas A&M pay $80 million to get rid of their coach so they can hire this guy. So I'm kind of shocked that Mike Elko wasn't up here and wasn't even mentioned. I probably would definitely mention him. Also, I think the guy that was at Liberty, who's now the head coach at Auburn, do I think he deserves to be on this list? No. But I think he could be if he is able to turn Auburn around, and that's Hugh Freeze, obviously, is who I'm talking about.
Yep.
This guy, won at Ole Miss and has won pretty much everywhere he's ever been. If he just didn't give those hookers his credit card, he never would have left. He never would have left Ole Miss, and he'd still be. Who knows if he would have been able to continue to beat Nick Saban like he did. So that to me is a guy that's kind of interesting and is worth watching as we move forward. But the amount of good coaches now that are in that are in these two conferences, the SEC and also the Big Ten, is kind of astounding to me. I mean, you mentioned Lincoln Riley there at the very, very end. He's kind of an afterthought here in the Big Ten, and that guy was the biggest coach in the country. Venables is also another guy that wasn't mentioned, who I thought did a really good job last year at Oklahoma and turned that program around. I think I'm interested to see what he does moving forward now that he's finally a head coach and stepped away from Dabo's shadow. And I'm interested to see what that looks like moving forward.
All right. Anything going on for you this weekend?
No, sir. You're looking at it. I'm going to go get some rest because I've been working nonstop and doing shows 3 weeks in a row on the weekend. So this weekend, my plan is to do the least amount of stuff possible.
Sounds like a good plan to me. My only thing I'm doing tomorrow is getting my hair cut. So I'll be resting the rest of the day.
Yeah, I got to do that too.
You got to do that.
I like wearing mine short in the summer, man.
I like it shorter than this, but I don't like it too short. But anyways, first of all, I forgot to wish you a happy Father's Day last week. I apologize. Hope you had a great Father's Day.
I did. I appreciate it. We had a good time, and I got to spend Father's Day with the family, so it was all good.
All right. Tennessee this weekend in the World Series. I'm going to watch a little Edmonton, Florida hockey tonight. So I got those things planned for me.
Yeah, I think they're going to get it done, man. I think Tony Vitello wins his first national championship, and I don't see anybody stopping him. This is, everybody talks about the 2022 team with Drew Gilbert and Evan Russell and all those guys, because they were certainly very talented, but they got a little cocky. And I think that set them back. This team is all focused, laser focused from start to finish. And there's so much depth, and the team is so consistent from, first batter through the ninth batter. Any of them can dominate and hit home runs. And I feel like they're on top, and I feel like they're going to win this World Series and bring home the title.
All right. Well, that would be nice for it to come back down to Tennessee and the Vols celebrate. So, my friend, have a great weekend. I will see you next week. Everybody who tuned in tonight, thank you for tuning in. We will be back next Thursday.
Sounds good, buddy. Take it easy.
Take it easy.